Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on the historic Route 66. We do a Tuesday live stream Q&A called Ask the Series 7 Guru every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. And at the end of those, we do a drawing for a free coaching call. And that is what we're doing here today. So join us Tuesday. You too might win a coaching call. Let's see what is on tap for today's coaching call. Excuse me. Greetings, Shelley. Greetings. So
Hi.
it looks like it's just you here for our coaching call winner call thing. We'll see if anybody else joins us. What would you like to talk about in your coaching call?
I'd like to talk about straddles and spreads.
Okay, advanced option strategies. All right. Let me go grab us the slide deck. Oop, that's not what we want. Doo.
Had a lot of questions in the practice test today, and it did not.
Uh,
I kind of got them mixed up, so I need
all
to
right, no
clear
problems,
it
no
up.
problems. Welcome, Matt. We're just first into the room is Shelley, and she wants to talk about straddles and spreads. And so we'll do that first, and then we'll go to you, Matt, with whatever you would like to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
Get
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good,
I
good,
think the
good.
best way to talk about that without doing, 4 hours of option lecturing is through the context of looking at some practice questions. I think of the advanced option strategies, the of the two, the straddles are a little more straightforward than our spreads. So let's look at a couple straddle questions here, and then we'll look at a couple of spread questions. So here we go. Boom, boom. Let me go find you. There you are. Boom, boom, boom.
So this will be my second time taking the Series 7.
Well, that's it doesn't matter how many times as long as you get it done. One of
Yeah.
my best brokers used to go out and tell people, man, if anybody knows this stuff, it's me. I had to take this test 5 times. People invest with you because they like you and they trust you, not because you can pass tests. We don't give scores anymore when you pass, but I'm being not being facetious here, Charlie. When I had somebody who would get over 90, I'd say, Matt, I think I should just get rid of you now. And he says, why? I scored over 90. I said, exactly. All you've proven is you're a bigger jerk as the person who wrote the test. And I'm going to be spending more time with you in the office than my family. And I don't think I should be hanging out with you. P.S. I also, how am I going to supervise you if you're smarter than me? You're always going to be one step ahead of me. I think I should just get rid of you now. Right? It cracks me up. There's a tutor that actually brags as part of his curriculum vitae that he got a 94 on the Series 7. And I don't know if I would chat that up because I'm not so sure that makes you a good tutor or not. Okay, there's four test questions, Shelley, about a straddle.
Okay. There'll
There's
be
four more. The first test question is, can you identify a straddle? And we identify a straddle as same action, buy, or sell, right? Because you're either buying or selling the option, same action, different option. There's two types of options, calls and puts. So what you're straddling is the strike price line here. Now, even if it wasn't a test question, I just told you it was. But even if it wasn't, if you can't identify the straddle, you're kind of be dead in the water. You got to be able to identify it. Now, once you've identified it in test question, this is a straddle. You're straddling the strike price line, same action, different option. Once you've identified it, the next thing you've got to be able to do in test is calculate the break evens. This is the only option position in which you have two break evens. You
yes.
have a upside break even and a downside break even. The way we do that is we combine the premiums. We combine the premiums. So we're out of pocket 5, out of pocket 3, we're total out of pocket 8. Call up, put down. So strike price plus total premium, strike price minus total premium. So 58 is our upside break even, 42 is our downside break even.
Okay.
Third test question about a straddle is, where is the straddle profitable? We have a memory aid device for that. Silo. Short inside, long outside. If you're short the straddle, you would want it in between these two numbers. And if you're long, you want it outside of these two numbers. This is a long straddle. Short inside, long outside. So we want the stock above 58 or below 42. The last test question about a straddle is when do you use it? You buy a straddle when you expect volatility, but direction is uncertain. Now, I bought a straddle on a company that hired a new CEO, Shelley. I wasn't sure he was going to fix their problems or not. I thought, if he fixed their problems, the call's going to go, the stock's going to go up. If he doesn't fix their problems, the stock is going to go down. What do I care? I bought a
Yeah.
call and a put. I got a built-in mistake here on one of these. Good news, my call came through and was enough to profit to pay for both the call and the put and still make a little extra.
Okay.
First thing we hear in this position would be the stock at expiration is 50. You lose $800. No matter how sophisticated we get, if you buy an option position, the worst case you're going to lose your money. So pretty easy to qualify. Use this $800 you can afford to lose.
Okay.
Other advanced strategy you have on your exam is a spread. And there are 8 potential test questions about a spread. Woo! Don't hate the 8. 8 potential test questions, right? Always we want to be able to identify. And a
Okay.
spread is soda, same option, different action. Same option, call, different action, buy, sell. Or same option, put, different action, buy and sell a put. Spread always means difference, right? If
Okay.
I say, hey, Matt, what's the spread on the game tonight? Or we're betting
10.
the difference in the scores. And he says, Dean, where do you want the score to be? Do you want it inside the spread or outside the spread? You can make either bet. And by the way, while we're watching the game, the spread is always changing. Oh man, I was watching the game the other night. I go, oh, here they come. They're coming back. So that's the spread. So this is a spread. That's test question number 1. Now, test taking trick, this is asking us the break even. And we know that the break even in a spread is somewhere between 40 and 50. All the action takes place between the strikes. All the action takes place between the strikes. So as a test taking trick, you should have been able to eliminate immediately
C and D.
8 and 92.
Mhm.
Because it's got to be somewhere in there. Now we have a memory aid device for break evens and spreads. And our 2 memory aid devices for break evens and spreads is call, add to the lower, and push, put, subtract from the higher. And so one thing we want to be able to do is net the premiums to discover whether this is a net debit or credit. So that 2 is money out, and that 6 is money in.
Okay.
And so this is a credit spread. The net credit here is 4. And so we want to net those premiums. And now we're back in business because now we have our net premium. As it relates to break even, it doesn't matter whether that 4 points is a debit or a credit. In this case, it's a credit because we have more money in than money out. And now what we're going to do is take the lower strike, 40, and we're going to add that net premium. And we're getting at our break even of 44.
Okay.
Now, by the way, stay menu driven on this. What I mean by staying menu driven is don't think about it until you get the answer done, because God knows, you don't want to be staring at it and in the meantime, the world is passing you by. But once you get it done, then you could think about it and say, okay, well, let's see. If I buy the stock at 40, which I have a choice to do, and I sell the stock at 44, I'd make 4 points. I paid 4 points. I break even. I'd say, don't think about it till you get it done, though. Okay, so what are some other potential test questions? So far, we've determined this is a credit spread. That's testable to be able to tell me this is a credit. It's testable to tell me the break even is 44. Another thing we got to know is where do we want the stock to be in relationship to that break even? Are we bullish or bearish? Test question. The larger premium dominates the position. The larger premium dominates the position. So we're trying to find out what sandbox I'm playing in here. I'm playing in the short call box. That's the playground I'm in. And so test question, this is a bearish spread. That's important because we need to know that we want it below 44. Yeah. Don't be a dumb bear, by the way. I think this is a smart bear, Shelley, because had you done the naked calls at 6, you'd make 6 and lose your ass. Here you're going to make 4 instead of 6. Test question.
So I don't understand. So which one makes it bearish? The 50 or the 40 or the 2 or
Larger premium. Which one of these is the larger premium?
the 6 is the larger
Short
premium.
call is bullish or bearish?
Okay,
Short calls are bearish. You need to know that.
short calls are the bearish.
Yeah, listen, you shouldn't be messing around in advanced option strategies unless you got the basics down. So you shouldn't be struggling that is an obligation to sell 200 shares at 40, right? A short call, 2 contracts, obligation. So that is the dominant leg. Now you're smart because you put in a ceiling. You say, you know what? I think just in case this thing blows up, I'll buy a 50 call,
Yeah,
right? Now, test question. This one we can rock and roll. Do we want the contracts to be exercised or expired? Test question. We want them to expire. Credit, expire, narrow goes together all the time. There's
okay.
no situation in which you have a credit spread and you do not want the contracts to expire. So you can go neener, 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 or
Yeah,
the difference to get smaller. Now, that's the hardest part to get. Don't need to get it. But if you call me, you say, hey, Dean, how is the spread today? Spread means difference. I said, well, Shelley, by way of reminder, when you established the spread, you sold the spread, the difference was 4. Now it's 2. Would you like me to close it out for a 2-point profit for you? Let it ride. That's the hardest part to get, but we don't need to get the credit near expire narrow because credit has 6 letters, memory aid device. Expire has 6 letters, memory aid device. Narrow has 6 letters. There's no situation in which you're not going to be right about that. You call me, how's the spread today? The premiums are always changing. I say, Shelley, remember you established the spread. You sold the spread for a net of 4. Today it's 6. You want me to close it out for the 2-point loss? Let it ride. That's going to be changing day to day, this concept of widen or narrow. Just like in my analogy with Matt, right? The score in the game is changing. It'll be continually changing until the in the game. When's the game end? On the 3rd Friday of the expiry month at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, right? And then there's not going to be any more changes, right? That's when the music stops, right?
Yeah.
One last test question is the gain and loss. Now, test taking trick. All of the action takes place between the strikes, which is the whole point of a spread. I'm only want to play between 40 and 50, and I don't want to play no more.
mhm,
Of the 10 points that can be made or lost, there's already 4 points in my account.
yes,
So my max gain here is that premium, 4 points, $400, 2 contracts, $800. Now, I would warn you, if you don't get certain things, then you're going to have to memorize things. And if you go down the memory road, then you're going to have to memorize lots and lots of stuff. I think it's easier to say, well, there's 10 points to be made or lost. I've collected 4, so I can only lose 6. I think that's easier. Now, if you don't get that, by the way, you can chop your answer set on the test and eliminate any 2 numbers offered to you as max gain, max loss that don't equal 10 in this case.
yes.
Or the gain and loss is, it has to equal 10. Now, if you don't get that, then you're going to have to memorize, yuck. The
And I
maximum
do get
loss
that
of
part.
credit spread is the difference in the strikes less the net credit. I just think that's a mental mess. I think it's easier to say there's 10 points to be made or lost.
Mhm.
And, I got 4 already in my account, right? So if these get exercised, bad news. That means you're going to buy the stock at 50 and you're going to deliver at 40. You're going to lose 10. But remember, there's 4 in your account, so you're just going to lose 6. All
That's
right, I
right.
told you that there were 8 test questions about a spread. We've done all 8 of the test questions. Test question, can you identify a spread? Soda, same option, different action. Same option, call, put, different action, buy, sell. So we have call spreads and we have put spreads. We're spreading the difference in the premiums. Test question number 2, can you determine credit or debit? If you get that, you can rock and roll because if it's credit, we know credit expire narrow and we've got our gain. If we determine debit, more money out than in, we know exercise wide and we got our loss. So that's really a key piece of this thing. Here we determined credit. So we said we want contracts to expire. We want the difference in the premiums to narrow and our max gain was 4. Can you determine the max gain and loss? We said the gain and loss always equals the difference in the strikes. So whatever the 2 numbers are, they add up to 10. And then we said we've got to be able to do break even, cal or push. We said the break even is always somewhere between the strikes. So we can eliminate anything that isn't between 40 and 50 in this case, the floor and the ceiling, the range. And we did cal, call, add to the lower. And then the last thing we got to do is determine whether the spread is bullish or bearish. And the way we do bullish or bearish is the larger premium dominates the position. Right? So those are your 2 option strategies. By way of review, the 2 advanced option strategies are straddles and spreads. Straddles with different strike prices are called combinations. With straddles, 4 questions. Can you tell me it's a straddle? You know, it's not a condor or a giraffe or a platypus or, when you say, oh, that's a straddle. Can you calculate the break evens? Can you determine where it's profitable? When do you use it? And then I said on the spread, we have 8 potential test questions. Can you tell me it's a spread? Can you identify it? By the way, even if that wasn't a test question, it is. If you can't identify it, then you don't know what to do next. You're just going to be staring at the screen. Oh, I don't know, B. So you got to jump in somehow. And the first way to jump in is to identify it. We identify the spread, debit or credit, uh, exercise or expire, widen or narrow, max gain, max loss, break even, bullish or bearish. Don't hate the 8. All right, Matt, what do you have on your agenda for today?
I actually passed my Series 7 on the 7th.
Woo!
So yeah, thank you. Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, well, it took me 3 times. So
Well, there
um,
you go, Shelly. So, Matt, I just told you I love it. Were you in the live stream last night?
not last night, no.
Oh, there was another guy who was, it was his 3rd time and he passed. And listen, I think I get so excited in situations like yours. And I got to then circle back and tell people, no, that's not the plan. The plan is not to be excited and diminish our resiliency. Kudos to Matt. We want to pass the first time, but I always love it when people pass their 7 and attested their resiliency because that bodes well for you future in the business. I had a guy on social media, Matt, and I literally had to ask him to leave the community
Ooh,
because he missed the mark and he was blaming everybody, his test prep vendor. And he started by saying he didn't read the book. And so it
oh,
didn't look like he even put in the work. And I said, listen, our community is about uplifting people. It's about helping people pass their tests. It's not for people who have a lack of accountability and, are spreading negative vibes.
yeah. Well, your videos put me over the hump.
Good, good, good,
No,
good.
they really did. It broke down a lot on the options
Yeah.
that I was struggling on, and it helped on intrinsic value.
Oh, well, there you go. So Shelley, you're going back to slay the dragon. Matt had to go in the cave 3 times to slay that Series 7 dragon.
Yeah.
Now he is a Series 7 Dragon Slayer, and you're going to be a Series 7 Dragon Slayer too. I would make 2 comments about that, Matt, in terms of paying it forward. Thank you so much. So, Shelley, one of the other reasons I prefer that people understand options rather than memorizing tricks and all kinds of things. I mean, I like memory aids too, but it would be better if you understand it. Because if you don't, then you can get bogged down in phraseology. Like
Yes.
I like to say, they close it out at intrinsic value. And if you don't know what intrinsic value is, again, you're just going to be staring at the screen.
Mhm.
So the way there I say that, Shelley, is T. There's 3 things that happen at the end of an option question. Only 3. T. The option got traded. Matt's point, they love to say traded for intrinsic value. They might just point blank say, what's the intrinsic value of a 50 call when the stock's at 52? the contract can be exercised, and the contract can expire. So those are the three kind of, I call them time clock questions. They love time clock questions on options. They like to use phraseology like several weeks later, you know,
Yeah,
or at expiration, so, they like to do that kind of, particularly as it relates to options.
I've been watching your videos to write like the short end stuff to help me remind.
Yeah, yeah, the matrix.
Yeah, like
There's
cow
lots of
and
different ways to
fish.
do options, lots of different ways, just as long as working. I had a young lady, and I really appreciate how willful she was. And I wouldn't have had any problem with her if her method was working. She goes, I've got my own method. I said, well, if your method was yielding right answers, I would have no problem with that.
Mhm.
But it's not. So
Mm,
you
yeah,
need to change course and direction here, right?
yeah.
Get a
I
method.
definitely feel this round that I understand things a lot better than when I took the
How close did you come the first time?
not close at all.
Okay. What were your first two scores, Matt?
I got a 68 and a
Oh,
70.
oh man, that hurts. Did you
Yeah.
change numbers those first two times?
No, I just threw Edward Jones and they use STC.
Uh,
And so they have a calendar that you need to follow. And so I
oh
followed
yeah.
it twice. I think the problem for me is I understood it. I just couldn't correlate it over to what I was getting asked on the
See,
test
I'm
questions.
so old school, man.
So
But I
I
don't know why they dropped the D in Edward D. Jones. I've always thought of it Edward D. Jones for like the last 5 decades. You guys have been doing business for 100 and something years. I'm like, why'd they drop the D? Yeah.
I've always said Edward D. Jones. Is that because there used to be a D in it?
Yes, yes.
I,
That's it.
well,
Guys like
that
me,
makes
you're probably
sense.
going to run into all kinds of old
have a
school guys.
question because I'm with Edward Jones and they said I have to pass this time or they won't
Oh, well,
continue.
I had a guy again. We were talking about people who show up in live streams. I don't know why, where these people come from, but he was a guy who was. I don't know why he would be taking sevens and going to work at securities firms if he didn't think we were helping people. I mean,
Yeah.
so he was poking fun of baby brokers at Edward Jones, and I said, well, listen, my friend, I can assure you that they haven't been set up as a criminal conspiracy to defraud somebody of a nickel. They wouldn't be around for 100 plus years carrying on a business if they didn't have a good reputation. And I said, I don't know if you know it, but it's organized as a partnership. So you can make fun of those baby brokers starting out, but as a partnership, if they make partner at Edward Jones, ooh, remember that? That means the money flows through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no retained earnings at Edward D. Jones. It all flows through those partners. The average partner is like 400 or 500, and some partners aren't average. I said, so listen, you could call that exploitation. I told this guy, but if 400,000 a year flow through to me as a partner is exploitation, sign me up.
Yeah, for sure.
So I always joke, whether it's your firm has a very good reputation, particularly in areas of not trading against customers and having less proprietary products. But the other thing I would say is in our industry in general, if you are poor and you deserve to be rich, there is no better industry than ours. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's true.
it's one of those things where you can have sweat equity. I talked about the four. Now I know that some people may be going to work in the support unit at Emory Jones in Missouri. Yeah, maybe not going to pull down 400, but still going to do well. I don't know
Yeah.
what the job market in
I'm
St.
in the
Louis is, but
support. Yeah, I'm starting in the support row. What did they say about your test third time? Because they told me this is it for me.
well, I
Uh,
think every firm is a little different, but at some point, if you said the first, this is your second time, Shelley?
Yeah, they let me do a retest.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's what I would tell you. I don't know their internal policies. Here's was my policy when I hired and fired brokers. Below 60 is a knowledge deficit. And that means we didn't have enough base knowledge to know what we were being asked and what the right answers were.
Okay.
And when I asked Matt what his scores were, and that I'd be a little more forgiving with because I would say to Matt, like, did you change answers? But more importantly, that demonstrates that Matt did put in the work and he
Mhm.
did have enough base knowledge for whatever reason. Maybe he got to face a death draw, who knows what. He didn't pass.
Yeah.
So if you don't get, be interesting to see. I don't know the internal policies, but if
Yeah.
you get below 60 again, it's a red flag.
Definitely.
That
Yes.
means,
Mhm.
that means that once again you went down there and you weren't clear on what you were being asked and what answers were being offered to you. And at that point, we start wondering whether this is, for you, and you got one more shot at it. My guess would be that on the second shot, we want you to pass. Like I said, we don't want people to go.
Yes, I want to pass.
But if we miss the mark, my guess would be if you're over the 60 range, they'll probably give you that third shot. Because now that at least they know you're in the hunt, so to speak. You
Yeah,
now have got enough base knowledge to know what you're being asked and what answers are being offered to you. That would be my policy. My policy, and I would point blank tell you that. I'd say, Shell, it's my firm, so I could do whatever I want.
yeah.
But most
And
firms
that's what Chase
backstage, I think
did.
that would be a similar kind of thing. So I would tell my brokers, like Matt, I'm going to send Matt down. My best broker, one of my best brokers, took the test 5 times, never blamed anybody. And then he used in his presentations. I know you're in a support role, Shelby, but he would go out there. He was in the front office, the business unit. And he would say, Matt, if anybody knows this stuff, it's me, man. I had to take this damn test 5 times.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
People invest with you because they like you and they trust you, not because you can pass a test. Same thing, I think, in the support unit. I have somebody right now who's struggling. They're in the support unit and they keep working with them, the firm. And I think it's because they know she's a valuable in terms of human capital. She does a good job. So, I think they'll probably,
I'm nice. People like me.
there you go.
Yeah.
Use that. Listen, I had another broker. I had two brokers, both baby brokers, Pat and Larry. Pat's a nice guy. And he would make so many mistakes, but backstage, people would fix it for him. Shelley says, oh, that's Matt. He's a nice guy. He's a baby broker. Let me fix this for him. And then Larry was such a jerk. And he would call like the support people and he'd cuss them out and he'd yell and scream. And then he would come to me and I said, Larry, you don't realize those people have not forgotten that.
Yeah.
Like next week, you're on, you've forgotten it and you're on with your life. But when they see you and you've made a mistake, Shelley says, well, I could fix it. Yeah, let him figure it out. So I said, that's why
Nice to me.
you're having so many problems behind this thing. Because then he brought up Pat. He goes, well, Patrick doesn't have any problems. I go, he's making just as many mistakes as you are. I'll tell you the backstage, he's making just as many mistakes. But since he's a nice guy, people are picking up the pieces for him and
Yeah.
not jamming up. You make a mistake and they go, oh, that's the guy who cussed me out last week.
Yeah.
I have no incentive to help him out, right? And in our business too, particularly at Edward Jones, there are men and women who are very, very valuable institutionally because they go way, way back. And I was telling Larry in the support unit, there might be just one person that knows how to fix this particular arcane problem.
Yeah.
And if you tick them off, we're never going to be able to fix it. Right? So,
Yeah.
Matt,
Well-
are you done with your registrations or do you have something still to do? Do you
Well, I've taken my 66 on the 29th.
Okay,
Or
do you have
si- yeah,
anything for today's
66.
coaching call?
No, and not in today's. We've got this calendar that I've got to follow through SEC, and so I've been working ahead on that.
Okay.
I'm
Well, we have a
almost
jam session coming up. That's free for everybody. You're welcome to join those. It's on the class tab.
the
And
conference calls, you said?
yeah, it's called a jam session, Q&A jam
Gotcha.
session.
I'll
So
get
just
on.
like this, it's a link. Anybody can sign up. You don't have to win the coaching call for that one. And
Okay.
everybody just brings their questions and we, go over them with a whiteboard, kind of like we just did. Except
Yeah.
it's for anybody who
I-
wants.
I mean, like as far as the 66, I think the only thing for me is like they give you all these formulas and then they're like, but you're not going to have to do math. And I'm like, well, then why do I have the formulas?
I'm with you. It drives me nuts. I hit the Zoom. It's a tutoring, right? And he starts the tutoring session by saying, Dean, I'm a math guy. I'm not going to spend any money tutoring math. You give me any two numbers, I can solve for the third. I said, fine, and he passed. But when he called me, he said, Dean, I had a little bit of hubris on the math. I thought I was going to get more points because I'm a math guy. And he said, a lot of times they asked me to recognize the formula, and I was able to reverse engineer it because I'm a math guy. I could figure out what the formula is after I do it. But I wish I would have just paid more attention to like just memorizing working capital as current assets minus current liabilities, current ratio, to solve for future value, I need present value, number compounding period. So it's recognition, Matt, on the math.
Okay.
More Can you do the math? You definitely got to be able to do current yield, total return, tax-free equivalent. Those
Tax-free
formulas are there
equivalence, yeah.
3 or 4 times. I was doing a live stream and I said, listen, I'm proof that you don't need to be you can be mathematically challenged and still pass these exams because I'm not a math guy. And I
Yeah.
had said that in my career, there's been times when the math is pretty serious. And I said, I have a friend Lee who's made tens of thousands of dollars doing math for me.
I had a math
He's a
guy.
genius, and then I know his math is going to be pristine.
Yeah.
Right? And then, anyways, the guy in the live stream said, "Well, you shouldn't be in our business if you can't do your own math."
Cares.
Well, I assure you, there are all kinds of men and women in our business making a good living who could do math and choose not to or don't want to do the math. There's people
Yeah.
like Lee that make good living doing a math, but it's not, it has nothing to do with your success
Yeah.
on business. By the way, even passing the test on the third time, that has nothing to do with your success. I'd be willing to bet if Matt is going into production in the business unit of Edward Jones, not the sport unit, I'd be willing to bet on him having taken this three times and got it done than the guy who, crushes it the first time. He's never had any misfortune. And, he's a little,
Yeah.
that man or woman might be a little more fragile than
Yeah.
Matt as it comes to building their book. So, if you tell me, I put it this way, if you tell me on 66 that you missed your mark because of math, I'm going to say, well, Matt, I think you had bigger problems elsewhere. But I would add to that that anything you're fearful of, right? So we'll use Shelley as the example. If she doesn't get comfortable with straddles and spreads, she's going to swear to us that she had 125 spread questions. I'll be nice and say, really? I never heard of such a draw like that. But, so your brain kind of picks up the things that people are prepared for, their brain doesn't pick up on it. Like I had a guy the opposite. I had no option questions. I go, that's impossible. You know,
Yeah.
I just think he was comfortable with them. So, he didn't register on his brain housing.
Oh, no, that last test, that's all me. That's,
There you go. So we
I,
want to,
I memorized and I shouldn't, I memorized things and thought I could just plug in things.
well, there you go. So just like I say, just, make sure you try and work on confidence, 100% pass ratio on what I'm going to suggest to you, Shelley. Every
Yeah.
night before you go to bed, every morning you wake up, I want you to go into the bathroom and I want you to look in the mirror and I want you to say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest Series 7 test taker of them all?
Me.
Shelley, Shelley,
Yeah. Yeah.
Shelley. Hurrah!
Yeah.
Right? For
But
Matt,
I take my test May 1st, so I've got some time
hey, there
to
you go. There you go.
tighten up.
And for
So
Yeah.
Matt's is going to be a little different. He's going to go, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the greatest 66 Dragon Slayer of them all?
It's
I
this
need
guy.
that.
Matt.
Yes.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
take the 66 after this too.
Well,
So
yeah.
that's typical. The testing journey is usually three legs, the SIE, the 7, the 66. So yeah,
yeah, I've got the SIE, the 6 and the 63 because I took
well,
all
there
three.
you go. I feel like starting every 66 class by saying, why don't you just get a 7? Because you're going to need one eventually.
Yeah. A lot of it pours over into
Case
this.
when you do banking, they have you do
No, I
this
get it. I get it. I get it.
that little the
I get it. I
trifecta.
get a little testing victory there. As a plan B, I don't like it as a plan A.
Yeah,
As a plan B, sometimes, people also could take a back move to get a 6 so they can at least get in production.
yeah,
It's like a firm like an insurance company, and they're getting you a 7, and you can sell variable annuities with a 6. They say, well, let's go for the 6 and at least get, put some money in your pocket if it's one of those places where it's straight commission.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for today?
I was
That,
just gonna say, Shelly, what really helped me was watching those Dean's videos where he was taking tests with people because I
okay.
would take it, I would pause it, and then I'd answer the questions. But a lot of times I was misinterpreting like, especially on like the judgment ones, because I was like, there's no way I would let this person like sell this stock when it was like uh the king or the I don't know, somebody
Yeah.
would call and want money, and it's like, there's no way I would do this, but you
Yeah.
have to because they're under 65. It's not elder,
There you
and
go.
like
Yeah,
it was just a way of looking at it completely different that
Yeah. I joke with you both. I mean, you both get to leave at some point the testing fantasy land and get back into the real world. I never get to leave the testing fantasy land. I'm stuck here
yeah,
permanently.
yeah.
No wonder I'm demented. Now,
when is the
Shelley,
Friday night test? It's Fridays, right? When you do
what's
the
that? No, no, no. We do the jam sessions. I do those just when people want to do them. It's a paid thing, and then some people give me permission to put them on the channel. So, Matt, the first I did them myself. I didn't realize this was going to be so popular, but Lauren is kind of a celebrity. She's the first one who actually gave
Yeah.
me permission
Oh
to
yeah.
share it. The producer is me because I didn't know she was going to give me permission to share because I say to, would you like to record? We're being recorded right now, and it's default. I share things on the channel with real people. Matt's point, and I guess people Misery Loves Company. It was so much more popular. People like watching another test taker with me taking the test. So
Yeah.
they had a guy who's I couldn't believe, man. He complained about he's trying to do this in his car, and I could do a much better deal on production. And I want to say, Lauren paid $1,000 to take that practice test with me, and she was kind enough to allow us to share it on the channel. So, you
Yeah.
know, sorry, my friend, but I can't tell Lauren or whoever that person is. And now remember, some people will be in their car.
Right.
You first say, what is that thing in the airplane? First, put on your own mask. Right.
Yeah.
So,
And then it's just
so
someone
like
else.
Matt, get his 7 done, then worry about helping Shelly or whoever else we can help.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Yeah.
we have a
congratulations,
lot of
Matt.
us.
That's a big deal to get
Yeah.
it.
Well,
I have a young lady, and she's so funny because she too, yesterday we are talking because she's taking her 66 Matt, and I've tutored her for her exams. Her dad's a big time producer at this firm, and hopefully she'll be able to take over his book over someday. But she told me this morning that because she gave me permission to do the same, that she is now more popular than Lauren on my channel
oh, nice.
doing the practice test. And I said, please stay focused on the mission. The mission is
Yeah.
not for you and I to do Series 6 shared screen practice test and you become a celebrity on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Your job is to pass the test.
Yeah.
So
Well, it was so helpful because I mean I saw so many other vendors test questions and it
I've been
that
very lucky. I've been very lucky that Knobman and STC and Kaplan give me permission to share content on
yeah
my channel. The only person I haven't been able to get permission from, I don't blame them, is past perfect. It's probably because they know I slam them all the time, so they, probably don't have any goodwill with me, like, so, but
yeah
yeah, I think that's a valuable thing too, Matt, is we have Knopman up there. We have Kaplan. I can do Kaplan anytime I want because, I got a good relationship with Kaplan, but the other ones I have to ask permission.
yeah
And I've been very fortunate that people, have given me permission to do that on different exams. So you can get exposed to a lot of different test geek, so there's a lot of,
yeah that was a good one. I think that was very
Brian's my good bud, and he does, I think, as good a job as anybody on positive correlation to the actual exam, like a
yeah
score.
I
Yeah.
would agree. I think that was probably the one that's worded the closest.
Yeah, I think so. He works hard on that on debrief and, so, he works pretty hard to get it right. Now, your point, some of the people, the guy at Kaplan who does the NASA stuff is a guy named Chuck. And your point, man, I know it's frustrating where it's Kaplan or STC when you get a rationale and it's like 3 paragraphs and then it says, well, you won't see this on the test. Then you
Yeah.
go, okay, so
Well, then why ask it?
why'd you take 30 minutes from me? I'm never getting back.
Yeah.
So,
No, I know.
all right. Anything else for today?
That's it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
by the way, Shelley, if you win the coaching call, Matt, you're welcome to attend any coaching call at tab that's there. And then those jam sessions, you're welcome to join us on those too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
one
will.
more point. I don't do this all the time. So if anybody's watching this replay, this is not an open offer to anybody. This is an offer only to Shelley and Matt that exist in this session. You can also join me for my office hours. Those office hours are usually for people who have paid for tutoring or paid to do the shared screen test. So that's a third thing that you could add to an arrow to your quiver that doesn't cost you anything. Most of the stuff on the booking page is not free. Everything on YouTube is free, but so we call that paid office hours, not because anybody's paying for it, but it's for, paid students. So
And
that's
that's
something to
the
check out.
office hours,
Yeah, it's
the
called
jam,
office hours. It's paid office hours for paid students, and it's on the class tab, and that too is free.
and that's jam session. And
Jam
what was
session's
the
free. That's just like this. We just open up a Zoom and we have a chat and we go around the horn with any questions people have. It could be Shelly has a question. Sometimes people bring their questions. They bring their QID. They
yeah.
bring an STC, and they put it up on the screen and we just knock them out. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we don't. I at some point I said this is the last trip around the horn because by about an hour in, it's time to call it a day, right? We don't want to keep going around the horn with it's 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, Shelly, keep working. I think you're in good shape. And Matt, I just warms my heart I was talking on Tuesday on the live stream that we've got to come up with like some secret decoder rings or something for people who do it the hard way. You know,
Yeah,
we got to come up with a term for them. Like, in the Marines, we have what are called Mustang officers, who are officers who start off as enlisted personnel and then they become officers. And they
sure.
in the Marines, being a Mustang is kind of like a really an honor and a privilege. And I think what I got to come up with, Matt, is something like that for those ultimately successful, victorious test takers who do it the hard way and
Yeah,
usually take it more than once and they stick with it. And
Yeah,
yeah, they're troopers.
yeah, right on. Okay,
yeah.
I'll see
Well,
you when I see you.
congratulations. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Dean. Shelley, keep
My
your head up.
pleasure. You
Yes, you
got it.
too. Thank you. Thank you, Dean.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Take care.